All right, welcome back to the Alamo Ranch Ward podcast. This is episode number 5, I think. I'm starting to lose track of the actual number. And here, singing it across the table from me for this amazing episode number 5 is Whitney Jensen.
Hello.
This is an opportunity for us to get to know Sister Jensen a little bit better, to Whitney a little bit better. We don't have to be so formal.
No.
Tell us who you are. Tell us about you. Where do you come from, and how long have you been in the ward? And
Came from heaven at some point. I was born and raised in Midvale, Utah, and went to school at BYU, Idaho, finished up there, went out to LA for a bit, moved up to the Bay Area, was there for the past 10 years, and then met my lovely husband out there, and he extradited me out of my home and brought me to Texas.
He unwillingly drug you from the beauty of California to the beauty of Texas, to a different version of beauty, I guess. We'll just say it that way. Awesome. Okay, so Utah to Idaho to California. All right, well, let's start with growing up as a kid. Like, what were you into, and what was your kind of growing up years like?
Oh, well, I am the only girl, 3 boys, and third, so 1 younger, 2 older, and very much a tomboy but girly girl at the same time.
How'd that work?
Well, my whole neighborhood was also boys. There was like one other girl my age, and so it was always hanging out with just the guys.
Okay.
So, as a 6-year-old, when most girls are playing Barbie dolls, different stuff like that, I was out in the backyard blowing them up with firecrackers with my brothers. So those didn't last long. And then always just trying to be like them. So anything they were interested in, I'd kind of like follow suit. So I know your kids do gymnastics.
Yeah.
My older brother did gymnastics, and he's the one that I'm most tried to aspire to, I guess, or impress. And so I did gymnastics, did a bunch of other sports. My 2 parents, one's from California, one's from Utah, and so kind of they met in Utah and stayed there, and so kind of
made a family, made a life there.
Yeah.
So your whole growing up years was Midvale area, northern Utah.
Same home. My brother actually bought my parents' home a couple years ago when they moved out of it,
Wow.
and so it's still in the family. I think my uncle lived in the house before. My grandparents bought it as like a wedding gift, I think, at some point, or like an investment property.
Goodness.
And then they kept just kind of passing it on to different kids.
It must make family reunions funny, like, you revisit that home and all these memories are tied up in it, like locked up in this home, but like it's different, right? Somebody else lives there now.
Yeah. No, that's, my uncle, he'll come and he'll just look out the backyard and he's like, oh yeah, we planted that tree, or like different things. And it's like, oh, interesting. My cousins lived around the corner, and then my aunt and uncle lived up the street. My uncle, who had married into my family, his sister and the bishop that she was married to were across the street from them. And so like our families kind of took up one portion of the neighborhood, and then there was this other family set on the next like street over. And that same thing, like they had like cousins and families down. And it's not like some weird, like, no, not to say weird, but like it wasn't like some farm town like out in the middle of nowhere where it's like very common that families, it's like we're in right off of State Street, like literally turn off of State Street and we're right there.
And this is northern Utah as well. So I'm thinking from a church context, like wards are small. Were you guys all like pretty much in the same ward? Was it a ward of like two extended families? Yeah.
So like as a youth, it's like if you were to date any of the people, it's like, okay, what family are you marrying into? You have to date outside the ward. There's a rule. I don't think anybody, and maybe one person ended up with somebody in the ward, but that's so different crazy. Family groups.
Sounds like a fun childhood. Now, you mentioned sports. You were into a lot of sports. You said gymnastics. What else did you try? Like, what else did you love? Was gymnastics your like top thing you loved the most? Or
no. I kind of tried all my brother's sports first. So my other brother did swimming, so did swimming for a bit, and then definitely I don't know how I survive in a pool. I drown almost every time, so clearly that didn't work. And then tried gymnastics for a bit. I'm not flexible, so that didn't work at all. And then I found my niche with volleyball, and so I played competitive volleyball up until the middle of high school, and then I kind of found tendonitis in every part of my body, so I gave up sports and focused on academics after that.
Career-ending tendonitis.
I came back to it a few years later after after college and moving to the Bay, I found a group when I finally kind of connected with some other LDS people there when I moved out there. They all played volleyball multiple times a week, so I kind of got back into it, but it was casual enough that it didn't bother me. But I did that and ended up running it for a few years at the Stanford ward out there, the singles ward, and so we just have people always coming in and going with it. And then luckily, in a way, COVID kind of ended my volleyball career because my shoulder was definitely starting to go out.
Oh,
so.
Okay. So that was like a fortuitous set of
Yeah.
events because you're like, I can't do this much longer.
Yeah.
And then we had to have a pandemic and then that.
Exactly. I tried it once during the pandemic, once like people were safe to kind of hang out and stuff. And I like that night, like I was like, oh, my shoulder's out again. Okay, that's officially done. So I switched to older people sports. Not so much older people sports anymore, but at the time, pickleball.
Pickleball, okay,
I got into it right before everybody got into it in the pandemic, and then I cursed the pandemic for making it way too popular because you couldn't find courts. So.
Anything else that you enjoy doing, like for fun?
Yeah, like reading. I love Amazon shopping. We won't talk about that though. No, I'm kind of in a process right now of rediscovering what my hobbies are. Okay. It's a big shift. I got married 2 years ago, and being single, living with roommates for so long that living out there, I just constantly had people that I'd go do things with and like new things to go do all the time. And then just single life too. You're constantly trying to get out with groups and meet people. And so it's just a different atmosphere now. And then Texas doesn't bode well for a lot of my hobbies, which are a lot of outdoors and like sport type of stuff. And so when half the year is hotter than hell, it's like, it's hard to get out and do things. And so, trying to figure out like what kind of things I enjoy now in a different environment. And so we've gone a lot into like mountain biking type of stuff. I really enjoy learning new things. Recently I forced Richard to do a welding class.
A welding class? Like hands-on learning?
Then. Oh yeah. First class, they didn't even like go through things. They're just like, here, go ahead and give it a try. And it's just like, okay.
Give it a try.
Cool.
Don't burn yourself.
I was like, okay, you have the equipment, you're fine. So that was really fun, but constantly like for work or just my own self-education, just trying to stay ahead of the AI curve right now, as we've talked about, is I'm just kind of trying to relearn things, advance my skills, and that's kind of what I've been into lately. Okay,
well, let's talk about that then. Let's talk about work. Tell us what you do and kind of how you got into your line of work.
Currently, I am working for a company called Chime. I just started 2 months ago, so I'm still learning the pitch on the company. But a lot of people know them as like an online banking type of thing, but really they're kind of a online interface for banks. So they work with other banks and then they provide the front end essentially. And then also like payroll stuff for other companies. But specifically what I do is I lead a people analytics team where I do any analytics for like internal to the company. So you have your other analytics teams that are doing all the external stuff, like how's sales and marketing doing and all that kind of stuff. Mine's the internal stuff of, hey, we just did this new learning and development thing. Did we see results that saw like manager improvement? Like did their employees rate that they were better at career development or stuff like that? And we try to prove those things out. But I randomly kind of fell into this. I studied accounting and have an emphasis in computer technology and art history, actually.
Oh, perfect blend. Yeah,
I know.
Why not?
Perfect. I went into what do they call it in school? Your like advisors. Because they kept trying to kick me out because I came in with so many AP credits to BYU Idaho, but they only accepted 2 of them.
What?
And so I had all these elective credits that were useless. And so my last couple of years there, they started doing where they're like, if you're over a certain number of credits and you don't have a clear plan, or you can't say when you're going to graduate essentially, then you had to go into the advisor every semester before you could sign up for classes to say, here's my plan. And so it was really like okay, my one AP that did go through was art history. And
Art
so
history.
I had two class credits already there for like this emphasis. And then they were like, okay, if you just take 2 more, you're good. So I'm like, okay, no problem.
So they were basically like gerrymandering you into minors to get you credit for things to get you out of there.
Yeah. Well, like, and I was trying to get, I kind of like pulled together some things to make sure I could get out at my 4-year mark. And so that's how that kind of fell in. But with accounting, as I went into it, I went and did a forensic accounting internship in LA. That's what took me there. And my mom's from LA, so
this is after you graduate and you're like,
that was my
spreading your
internship
wings.
in college.
Internship during college.
Yeah. So went out there and I was like, okay, no, this is totally not for me.
Oh.
And I was debating about a mission and different things, but then I was turning 21 and they changed the age to 19. And I'm like, oh no, that's not happening.
Not doing that now.
So then I'd sit and be like, okay, where am I going? And that, my last semester, they had this new team at EY, Ernst & Young, that was doing technology automation. And so I was like, oh, like, I absolutely want to do that.
Cool.
I don't want to do normal accounting. I don't want to do audit. Love taxes. Probably the only person that will ever say that. But then, I was like, this is my niche. So moved out to San Jose for that job. Was there for 4 years. And it was kind of a weird situation where they're like, I wasn't doing any like concrete accounting work. I was automating a lot of accounting work, and I was very specialized in stock compensation accounting for that.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, you have to pass the CPA because you can't be promoted to manager until you do this. And I'm like, shoot.
I don't want to do that.
So I tried to make a plan to take the CPA exam in 8 months while working full time.
Oh my goodness.
Going through a breakup, getting an appendix surgery, like all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
And so that clearly did not happen. So at the end of it, I told him I'd only take it once. And then if it didn't work, I'd probably find something else to do.
Go work somewhere else, right?
Because I did not want to pay for it again out of pocket because I'm like, I'm not going to be a CPA. So I clearly did not pass, so don't ask me to do any accounting. I did, but I had no time to study. I think I pass the tax? I think I passed the tax one, and then I was like 2 points off from another one.
2 parts, 4 parts? It's like
5 now.
5 parts on a CPA.
Yeah. And so I didn't, and I told him I wouldn't take anymore, so I didn't. And I was trying to figure out where I was going to go, and I went and worked for my job there was kind of split between some tax work, so the stock compensation stuff, and then data analytics and program management stuff. Okay. And so I was trying to get out of the accounting umbrella, just to I didn't want to stay there. I knew I wanted to broaden my horizon on that. And so I went and worked for a consulting firm in Palo Alto doing project management and program management. So I worked at a PMO at a company for a bit. And within a few months, I was like, I need to get back to like data analytics. I can't do this where I'm just assigning people work and I know how to solve it, but I can't do it myself. And so landed a job with Robinhood, actually, in the stock trading one that everybody knows for GameStop and all those things.
Yeah, very retail stock. Retail investor stock platform, right?
Yeah.
Trading platform.
And I joined as a recruiting analytics person on their recruiting operations team. And so kind of fell into that, and that oftentimes recruiting analytics evolves into full people analytics teams. They were in a startup stage of growth, so massive hiring, and so it makes sense that you start in recruiting. So kind of grew in that, stayed there for a number of years, and then jumped to Roku doing people analytics as well, and then just left there a couple months ago to come over to Chime.
So you've kind of carved out for yourself then this really cool specialization of HR and data. So it's like people and data science.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me how like that happens for people, right? Where you're like, what is my calling in life? Like, what am I going to do with all these talents that I have? And suddenly you find like over time you find like the blend of like what works things for you and how you can like put those weird things together, and there are actually jobs in those weird things.
Yeah. No, and I didn't know it existed. I was just like, oh, Robinhood is a cool company. I knew about it because I dated a guy who was like, my dream job would be with Robinhood. We broke up, so it was kind of a stick it to you type of moment.
You're like, I'm going to go get your dream job and I'll just show you.
And so, it was a wonderful company. It was great to work for. And, but yeah, the people analytics in and of itself, it's kind of like something you care about because you're dealing with employee data, which is also your own data and like what's important to you as an employee.
Oh.
So it's just like, it's very easy to care about the issues going on for like a company for individual employees because you're experiencing those same things.
Yeah.
So whether it's return to office policies or anything like that, it's like you're there caring about it as well.
I never thought about it that way. I get that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. We at my work we have like a semi-annual survey, right? And
Yep,
we take
those
the
are our
results.
teams.
Yeah, we take those results like very seriously, right?
Yeah.
And make plans, and we try to let them be very very natural, like what the results are, and then try to respond to them. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's but I never I've always responded to that as a manager. I've never really thought about like being on the other side of the data, like.
No, and it's crazy easy because like I'm still developing in this space too. My manager, I hired him at Robinhood as my boss, and then after he left, a little while after he left, I followed him to Roku and then just came over to Chime to follow him there. But he's phenomenal in the space, and he's been in it for a long time, and so it's been really cool to grow in the space and just learn all the things. And I'm continuing to learn what you can do with it, and it's a niche area that's continuing to grow too. Because when I first joined with the recruiting analytics, it was very kind of like in its like foundational state across like all businesses, and COVID really heightened the need for it because of all the like, how do we handle workforces that are not in the office, and then now, how do we bring workforces back to the office?
Well, it felt like everyone, particularly because the job market went crazy at that time. So everybody's worried about retaining employees. They're worried about, compensation.
Analysis, all the stuff.
Because money was changing, at that time, like everything was changing. And so it was like, I can imagine how data became super important because you're like, why are people leaving? How do we retain people? How do we attract people? How do we? Yeah.
So fell into it just at the right time.
That is perfect.
Now I've kind of stuck with it.
Wow. We could nerd out and talk about
You can cut a big chunk
forever.
of this. It's okay.
Yeah. Let's go back to like you grew up in northern Utah, member of the church your whole life.
Yep.
Family or members of the church.
Yeah, born and raised.
And you went to church school, BYU, Idaho, right?
I did,
so
yeah.
Thought about a mission, went to California. Talk about that transition. Like, how did it feel to sort of have the upbringing you had and like the religious consciousness you have? And California has a lot of church members. Like the church is very strong in California, generally speaking. But like, was there a transition there? And as you transitioned from like being in a church school, right, to being in like the real world, all of this stuff out there, like what was that like?
Yeah. Smelling beer for the first time when you're out at a work event and you're like, what is this smell? That's not that I was like insanely sheltered, but I just like, I never was around it at all.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty independent. So like the move wasn't hard in and of itself. It took me some time to find my space in the Bay Area. And so I initially moved out to San Jose and lived down there and just like was not finding my group of people. I lived there for a few months. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go move up by Stanford.
Got to be people there.
Yeah, there's got to be. And just found this area that was just my people. And I lived there for 10 years in Menlo Park, right by Stanford. And so the Stanford wards where hiring Quentin Cook was out in that area, like all these apostles came through there. And so it's just an impressive group of people, both from like worldly impressive, but then also within the church, just so impressive. It did take me a while to like find my group. So it's like just kind of being all of a sudden thrown into the world and I went crazy or anything. And I do miss having LDS friends because they know how to have fun without drinking. And it's like, I'd go out with my friends and I was always the designated driver and stuff like that. But it was like, I just remember this distinct, I went on a trip with two of my coworkers that I'd become good friends with, not LDS, but we went on a trip up to Seattle, drove up to Vancouver and like all those things. And I just met that group of people that I started playing volleyball with like the week before I went on this trip. And it was just like such a stark difference of, just knowing how to enjoy life without a little like social lubrication. And so I just like on that trip, I just had this kind of like, I don't want to say like depressed or dark or like different things. Cause like I wasn't doing anything wrong by any means, but it was just this like, no, I really want to find my group of friends that are in the church. Cause I miss that. And I was like going to church and everything, but just hadn't found my group. Yeah. And so it was so nice when I found that. And then, I was, like I said, single until Richard and I got married at 30. I had graduated to the mid-singles ward out there.
Okay.
And it really, I really like the perspective of the church out there. I think people come from varying backgrounds, and also a unique thing that happens in the Bay is that it's so expensive to live there is that most people's families are not from there. Oh. And so it was a really unique experience in the fact that people really did lean into the ward because they didn't have anywhere else to go to connect with people.
Yeah.
But with that, it's also an area that people come similar to like New York City or different things where they come for a small period of time and a lot of them leave. Like very few people stay as long as I did.
Okay.
And so, I felt like every 3 or 4 years, it was like a transition of friends. Like I can't tell you how many cycles of friends I went through. Yeah, it was just a very unique experience. And just like looking back on it now, like just went through different phases of life out there and just different phases of my relationship with the church as well. And with those cycles of friends, it's really interesting when I look at it of very key people were placed in each cycle that helped my testimony, strengthened it, got me more involved, whatever it was. I can see like different phases. Like this is era 1, era 2, era 3, like whatever it is, And so
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to the types of questions I want to start asking, which is like, let's talk more about that faith journey. Like as you sort of evolve from, someone who's grown up in the church and that sort of faith that's instilled in you from parents, and now suddenly you're independent, and you're done with college, right? Like you can sort of make whatever life you want. What do you feel like contributed to really like that faith maturing like into an adult faith?
I think having to choose it and continuing to choose it. So I traveled a lot for work for quite a long time. And so it could have been like in different times, it could be very easy for me to just not go to church for a while, mostly because of my job where I just couldn't get to church. And so it was kind of very easy to, if I wanted to fade out of that, I could have. But my mom, it was like non-negotiable. You went to church on Sunday. She didn't care if you believed it. Like kind of like, I mean, she cares, but
we are going, we do this. This is
it's
what
like,
we do.
You go to church, and it's like, you have to be on your deathbed if you're going to miss like church or school or anything. And part of that was she was a full-time working mom. And so it was like, she couldn't stay home either. And so it was like, you got to go and do things. And so that kind of just stayed with me where it's just like, you go to church, like you even like if I wasn't feeling it, didn't have a testimony at different times, it was like, nope, you go to church. Yeah. and it worked out because like by different phases in my life where I maybe was closer or further from the church, it was like I had good friends there at least. And so it still like drew me to that. Different experiences in my life, I very much came to different crossroads where I had to very much choose, like, is this what I want? And whenever I'd sit there kind of on those crossroads and be like, which way do I want to go? Something that's always stood out to me is family and eternal family. And that's like a pillar for my life. And no matter what else, I don't think times where I was like less active or different things, it was never a question of, did I believe the church was true? It was just kind of laziness in a way, or like
life
circumstances of just like, I'm not feeling this, but it was never, I don't believe this. But like always at the end of the day, I was like, okay, if I died tomorrow, would I be happy believing what I do believe? Whether I'm living or not, would I be happy with the results based on how I'm living? And so I'd sit there at those crossroads and be like, you know what? Like my family's important and I want to stay with my family. And I believe that so much that that grounded me. And I'm very close to my family. But that just always stood out to me, and it's always like continued to draw me back. And so that's just, like I said, just a pillar of my life that stays there. And like I said, I did have to choose, like, is that something I want? And there's times when the church is like, I mean, as a female in the church and continuing to grow in the church and being in management positions outside of my personal life, sometimes there's things that it's like, oh, this stuff's hard sometimes, that it's like, I don't have as strong of a voice as I get outside in like my job or different things that I don't get in the church. But I always just have to kind of like refocus things and be like, okay, what's important here? You're working with people. Like, these people are not trained in the church. Like we're all raised and we're all learning well, we're not all raised, but we've all come to the church and learned things. But it's like, people are volunteering their time.
Yeah.
And it's very much like, I highly doubt you asked to be put in as bishop.
No.
You're doing great.
Confirm that is true.
But it's like, I can't, like, you know, I just have these moments with that as like my personal and work life is very different than like my church life. And just kind of having to continue to be like, no, this is where I want to be, even though my role is very different in places.
What life experience have you had that has caused you to trust in God?
I think it's really important to ponder your life and look back at things and try to identify where the hand of God is in your life, because it's very hard in the moment to see those. And then you kind of look back and you're like, wow, there are so many things. So what I was saying earlier of all those friends and different things coming into my life at different times, it's like, nobody else could, like, that wasn't just chance that this like perfect person came into my life at this time and like made this impact there. And I even look at between good things or bad things, like of just, I was thinking of going on a mission, and ultimately, like, I was starting paperwork and different things, and they changed the age, and that was one part of it. It's like, I'm not going to go out with 19-year-olds. Sorry, all you 19-year-olds. But I was like, I'm not going to do this. But it was also like, it was very much confirmed that it was like, nope, this actually isn't the right thing for you to do anymore. It was at some point, and now it's not. Like, circumstances have changed, and that's fine. And I had one semester of school left, like all these things. Yeah. But with that specifically, like, I look at that moment where it's like, I could have gone on a mission, would have been a great decision, and would have produced all these other things. Yeah. But if I would have gone on a mission, my life as it is wouldn't have happened. Like, me getting that job in San Jose wouldn't have happened 3 years later. Right. Me meeting all these key people in my life wouldn't have happened, because I wouldn't have been in California at the same time. Me meeting my husband, like, wouldn't have happened. And I mean, it may have happened in some other way. If that was who I was supposed to end up with, I'm sure it could have been orchestrated in some other way. Sure. But there's just all these key people in my life who have been so impactful, and just experiences I've had too in my life, that I'm just like, I think pondering on those things, that you can see God's hand now, and appreciating and valuing that it was God's hand, and recognizing that it was God's hand and not just a mere chance, like, oh yeah, Richard happened to like move into our ward and happened to just be there, you know. It's like, no, like, I think things very much lined up. Like him and I, even just like our own personal experiences of like, Richard was 37 when we got married, I was 30, but our backgrounds are very similar. Like, it's kind of insane, the different things we went through in life, and that they were actually like almost mirroring each other at the same time in life. Awesome. But it's like, you have to take time to recognize those things and appreciate it.
I always say that, you know, you look backwards in life, like, as you look backwards, it's very easy to see the hand of God in your life. Yeah. When you're in the moment, and sometimes when you look forward, even, you're like, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out. This is making me nervous.
Especially in those hard moments.
Yeah, but you look backwards and you're like, oh yeah, I can see how all this was like working together for my good. See the thread that goes between everything. So you are now here in the amazing state of Texas, in the amazing ward of Alamo Ranch. What do you like about it? Like, what as you think about all the great weather you left behind, but what's different here? Like, I'd love just to, now that you've been here a couple of years and you've kind of gotten to know the good, bad, and the ugly, like what stands out as like, wow, this is a unique thing about San Antonio, or this is a unique thing about the Alamo Ranch ward?
I'd been here. My brother was military, Richard's military. And so I'd been out. My brother was actually stationed out here years ago. So I'd come and visit out here on the other side of San Antonio, over in Randolph area, to visit nieces and nephews out here. And my whole family, the minute they got restationed, we were like, yes, we never have to go back to San Antonio again. Sorry to say that. But then I got married and instantly got stationed here. And I was like, apparently we're supposed to be here. And
that's God's justice, by the way. Yeah.
And to be completely honest, we've tried multiple things to get out of here. Yeah. And everything falls through. And we're like, we're having to sit here and be like, why are we here? Like, what is it? And like I said, we're discovering new hobbies. We're discovering new restaurants we like. We're meeting people, different things like that. And I think there's a lot with the relationships here. There's good people here, and very interesting coming from someplace like the Bay, where it was weird to hear that somebody went to church, to hear being like, oh yeah, I kind of, everybody goes to some church or like has some kind of belief or something. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate it. It's not, I think on the surface, you think it's kind of going to be almost that Utah bubble because you see a lot of transplants from Utah. So you feel like it's like a repeat of it. And then you get to know people and it's like, no, people have very real experiences and very real background. There's a different like kind of faith here, I guess, and not in a bad way, very good. And just it's been interesting with the military transition here is that, I don't know if you feel it in this ward being like a longtime member, but it's like, it does seem like there's a lot of transition, but you still have a lot of like key stable people that have been here for a long time. Yeah.
I mean, in some ways it's like a singles ward, like we were talking about, where it does sort of remake itself every few years where you're like, oh, is this the same ward I was in 3 years ago? Kind of squint at it and you're like, oh, I see some people that are familiar.
Yeah. No. And so it's, that was a similar thing. We're just trying to like, oh, I have to continue to make cycles of friends. Yeah. Like Richard lived in this ward before and he very much wanted to come back to this ward. And so it was nice to come in and have some level of people knowing who we were.
You brought up the military connection with Richard. And so you've also now recently become a military spouse. Yes. And that's a whole different...
a spouse and a military spouse.
Yeah, a spouse and a military spouse, right? But that's a whole other subculture to sort of walk into, right? I mean, what has that been like to get to know the military life that your husband's been a part of for so long and like to sort of have that new designation as well?
It's interesting because, like I said, my brother was here with the military, and my brother is a firefighter with the military and very different, like, because of kind of that firefighter camaraderie. You have a crew that you work with a lot. And I thought it was going to be more like that. For me coming to the, like moving out here with Richard is like, oh, we're going to have tons of friends both via the church and via the military. And we aren't as heavily integrated into the military side. I have a few people that I know from his team and we have a couple friends that are on the military side, but I'm not heavily involved on that side of things. So I don't know if I can fully. Yeah.
The nature of his job is a little bit different than say like people who get deployed and you have to like band together with the other spouses to make it through the deployment.
It's not like frontline type of work stuff, but very important still.
Very important. Okay. We are nearing the end of this amazing discussion. What haven't I asked about? Like, what do people need to know about you? What haven't we talked about that like is like, this is what everyone needs to know about Whitney Jensen?
I'm a closed book until people ask me specific questions. When people ask me like, oh, what's something interesting, it's just like blank in my head. It's like,
nothing. I'm not interesting.
Yeah. I literally, like my dating years, I have, and I still have it. I have a list on my phone that's literally called "Why Are You Interesting?"
Oh my goodness.
And
we just need to crack that open.
Read through it. I don't think it's even valid anymore.
Oh no, it's like now I want to see it. Okay,
but I had to like go back through and like remind myself of like these are hobbies you have. These are things you do.
I love that. That's like the most single thing in the world, right? Is to have this like self-evaluation of like, okay, this is how I'm going to talk about myself to other people.
This profile's going on Hinge. This one's going on Mutual. No. I have experiences.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, if anybody needs help, if you needs counseling in this regard,
I can help you out. I am sometimes overly loyal friend. But yeah, I probably do come off closed book and kind of like, I swear I'm a nice person.
And I'm here to verify that you are a nice person.
Yeah.
And you're super fun to talk to. So people who haven't talked to you yet really need to.
Yeah. I'm not like somebody that goes out there and like openly is like, here's all my information. Neither is Richard. So we probably seem like little recluses, but it's like, happy to talk to people, happy to get engaged with people and stuff. And so it's hard for me to answer those questions. I would have to pull out my list.
What I've learned from this is if anybody wants a mountain biking buddy,
yes,
they should contact you. If anybody wants a pickleball buddy, they should contact you.
I'll come play pickleball. I'm probably not good anymore, but I'll come play.
And if anybody, wants a person who maybe has been through single life and has a lot to share in terms of like getting through that part of your life, I think you're a great person to talk to for that as well.
I'll go eat really good food with you. I will never say no to good food.
All right. Well, thank you for spending this evening.
Thank you.
It's been super fun.